Let's talk to Rob Carr Sijpesteijn. He is a sales trader at Ayondo. Very good morning to you.
Morning.
Right, you sent some thought-provoking slides to the studio. Let's kick off without further ado. Let's talk about horror month into Santa Rally with a question mark.
Well, yeah, there is a bit of a question mark behind it because obviously we have had such a horror month. I mean, it's quite fitting that it is in Halloween. But October really was one of the worst months. As it says there, you know, the worst performing month since 2012. And all of the major indices were down. A lot of equities have been sold off.
Yep.
And we've had, what is that, the 7% drop in the Germany 30 of the DAX, a 5% drop in the UK 100, and all of the US indice markets as well have all come off. You know, we've been looking throughout this year at sort of the FANG stocks, which have all been performing very well. But again, even those have suffered a little bit, which we will have a look at as well today, at a few of those, and sort of see what the sentiment is behind the traders. What's the reason for the sell-off? Has the market been overinflated? Have people, you know, been trying to cut on costs, or are the traders just, you know, trying to take some profits and then maybe going to go back in? So we'll have a look at a few options there and see sort of what the thoughts are.
Understood. Okay, well, let's talk about overselling on the next slide. The investment opportunities from overselling.
Yeah, exactly. So if we have a look at all of those indices that are all down, and specifically take a look at, for example, the NASDAQ or the US Tech 100, which has dropped, I think it's about 9%. It's a huge drop for one month. And most of the sell-off has come from tech stocks, which have really suffered. But at the same time, we are in reporting season. So, you know, over the last couple of weeks, we have had a lot of reporting come out. Unfortunately, it does end tomorrow. Tomorrow, I believe, is the last day. But there are a few still to report today and tomorrow, which might influence both the indices and some of the products. So we did have mixed sentiment. For example, Amazon reported a few days ago. And when they came out, you know, they were up 5% growth on sales comparative to last year, which is a strong performance. However, not strong enough because investors are used to getting double-digit percentage growth in Amazon, and therefore they're slightly concerned about it. So we've actually got, yeah, exactly the slide on the screen here, and you can see those two sharp declines. That is the day after reporting. The first decline, second decline comes down. So you can see the market's dropped off from about 1,800, and it's gone down below 1,500. It went down to about 1,480. So quite a huge decline over 2 days. The market has started to come back on Amazon because there is positive sentiment there. There is good news there. It's not as strong as we have seen in the past.
Right.
But is this potentially an overreaction? And this is what we're seeing in certain markets. You know, they might be right for selling off because we have been at all-time peaks. But there might be specific equities in those markets where they've
been oversold.
Oversold, exactly. And that's a prime example. Apple, actually, funnily enough, 2 days ago released 2 new products. So this quarter they have the most products they've ever had in the market. Of course, it's Christmas as well, so that bodes well for both Amazon and Apple retailers. You've got Black November coming up, or Black Friday coming up.
Sorry,
Black Friday. My apologies.
Hopefully not a Black November.
Hopefully not a Black November, exactly. Hopefully we see everything sort of rise up again. But Black Friday will certainly help, and obviously Christmas as well is going to help with those retailers. Apple report as well today. So hopefully we see sort of a rise on that. Even when they reported the 2 new products, they had quite a rise.
Okay, let's talk about risk. Let's talk about gold on the next slide. The gold performance now, I've been watching this, and every time you think it's breaking onward and upward, it doesn't.
No, it's very true. Funnily enough, actually, this is unfortunately a screenshot from yesterday evening. I did have another look today, and it has ticked up quite a lot today. But the main reason for taking this yesterday is because we did have a rally. If you look at, you know, the movement upwards, that is throughout the whole month of October. So there was, you know, very much bad sentiment in the market in terms of equities. People were selling off. Interest rates were being increased in the US. US Treasury bonds are yielding very high percentage for risk-free return. So people are getting out of equities. But because there's volatility in the market, we do see people moving into gold. So it did rally up a little bit over October, which is interesting. But over the last 3 days, when we have had that performance in the US indices, and that growth that we've seen in the last couple of days, it's just interesting to see that the gold has actually pulled back. Today, again, it's rised up, funnily enough, but it will be an interesting one to follow, especially if people start coming back into certain equities, where the gold continues to come down and go back down towards that 1200 level it was at a few weeks ago.
Understood. Let's move on to the next slide. The headline, stocks reporting today. So quite a busy day in the States.
Yeah, exactly. A busy day in the States, and it's an interesting one. Obviously, Apple's one of the big ones. I mean, GoPro has huge marketing behind it. It's extremely popular. Again, just an interesting product to be monitoring. Somewhat in the tech sector, but obviously a bit more camera focused. And then the next three are interesting. Royal Dutch Shell reported this morning, but we do have Kraft Heinz and Starbucks. Now, if we look in the UK and we have a look at things like Tesco, Marks and Spencer's, Morrison's, all of these food producers that reported down, and they have actually had a bit of a sell-off following that. So it will be interesting to see whether that follows in the US with Kraft Heinz reporting. Not quite the same, but it is obviously a consumer product. They are producing food, so it'll be interesting to see whether their product sales have gone down as well comparative to over the UK over here.
Understood. Okay, let's move on to the Apple slide. Again, that looks quite toppy to me, if I put my technical analysis hat on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it came up to highs of about 230, and that wasn't too long ago. That was just at the beginning of October, a little bit beforehand. It did suffer over the October period as well. We can see that drawdown coming down about $20 or so. But that big jump that we have on the latest candle there, that is the reporting of the two new products.
Yeah.
So two new products come out. Suddenly, we've jumped up and we've gone up about $8. So it's quite a significant jump up there. And with their reporting today, if their growth is, positive, if it's on expectations, if it's not underperformed expectations, then hopefully we see that rise back up and come back up to that 230 level, which was where the sentiment was bringing it before sort of the horror month. But it's going to be an interesting one to see how they progress now, and whether we do get that Santa rally, because we've been getting that since about 1985 or so. Continuously, continuous growth within specifically the US sector, but even the FTSE's grown about, I think it's 2% on average, or 1.8%. So it's hopefully we do see that Santa rally and we can get some growth out of that as well.
Okay, let's wrap up with the last slide. This is one of your traders, OB Trading. What did you want to highlight here?
Well, obviously, it's been a difficult month for some of our traders. We do offer the social trading, so I did want to obviously bring it back to that and highlight one trader. Unfortunately, we did have a few traders that have suffered from this month, which is understandable given sort of those 7 to 9% falls in the indices. But OB Trading is quite an interesting one. It's been with us obviously for well over a year, and predominantly only trades Euro US dollar. So a little bit different. Currencies are coming a lot more into play with sort of interest rates rising. We've got also Brexit as well happening. Pound rallied a significant amount over the last 2 days as an example, but he's been performing really well on the Euro US dollar. Not massive gains, but it's consistent and returning, around about 1% to 0.5% a month, which is great. I think he's on about 9.5% this year.
Warren Buffett would be very happy with that.
Exactly.
On that note, we ran out of time. Rob, it's always great to see you. Thank you very much indeed.